This is Chapter 11, Part 3, Conflict Management Strategies. Different conflicts will generate different responses, and so we need to understand that our strategy will not always be the same, and other people's strategies for dealing with us will not always be the same. So it's going to be something influenced by a variety of factors, as you see here. One of those factors would be our goals. Our goals may be short-term or long-term. So a short-term situation might look like us trying to just end the conflict so we don't end up in an argument, or because we're not very savvy at being able to argue our own points, and so maybe we just put it off, or we say, you know what, we can do what you want. That's a short-term solution. If you want to look more long-term at building communication within the relationship, being able to manage conflicts in the future, then it will look different, perhaps. Our emotional state is another thing to consider. If we're angry, sad, or happy even, we may not want to engage in conflict. If we're angry, well, the conflict may not be all that productive. If we're happy, we may not want to ruin our mood by entering into an argument, so our emotional state may have an impact. Our cognitive assessment will also impact our strategy. This is our thoughts about equity and fairness within the conflict and within the relationship. Obviously, your personality is going to play a role in how you manage conflict. If you're very shy and reserved, you will probably not as actively engage in conflict as if you were assertive and dominant. And then, of course, your communication competence as well will play a role. If you know you're not good at talking through things without really sitting down and really thinking about it and planning out what you're going to say, then it may impact your communication strategy and thus your conflict resolution strategy. Family history and your culture will also impact how you see conflict and how you manage it. We've talked about these in a previous video, but the idea of win-lose, lose-lose, or win-win strategies. Just something for you to note, win-lose scenarios often end in resentment. Not everyone got anything positive out of the interaction, and so there's some resentment on the loss side. Win-win scenarios lead to mutual satisfaction because both sides got something that they wanted. So typically, if we want to continue a positive scenario, we aim for win-win strategies. We've talked about avoidance as a strategy, but there's some slight nuance differences for avoidance. You can demand withdrawal. This is the idea where you make your demands, you tell people what you want out of the situation, and then you withdraw. An interesting bit of research that they mentioned here is the fact that as people age within a relationship, so married couples that have been together for a long time, or couples in general that have been together for a long time, you'll see more of this strategy where they'll make it known what they want and then they'll walk away. And so both sides have time to consider and think about and come up with strategies. There's non-negotiation, where the person refuses to direct any attention to managing the conflict or listen to the other person's argument. They just hammer at home what they want. And then there's silencers. This is a way to stop the conflict from continuing on. Often it's going to be something like crying or screaming, but something that stops the conflict from continuing on actively avoiding the conflict. There's fighting techniques. Uh, this is active fighting. It's about actively speaking and listening. Um, if you're going to be active in a situation like that, it's always good to use I language to describe the scenario instead of you language that evaluates behavior. The next set of strategies here is force and talk strategies. Force strategies, these are negative. Uh, generally speaking, they're going to be either the threat of violence or actual violence. And so typically we want to stay away from those. They may be adequate to resolve a conflict, especially if you're trying to force accommodation, but you're probably not going to end up with a positive response in that relationship. There's talk strategies where you just talk through the conflict. Each side needs to act in the role of a listener whenever it's their turn, ask questions, paraphrase information back, express support and empathy for the other side, and also take the time to state their own thoughts and feelings so that the counterpart has the ability to express support and empathy. Anytime we talk about face, it just seems strange because it's not a term that we use in our common vernacular. But remember, the face is just about the self and how we see ourselves. Positive and negative face. Negative face is the ability to remain autonomous. Positive face is more or less our self-esteem, self-image. So there are face attacking and face enhancing strategies to conflict management. Face attacking means that you are being very aggressive here. And the term belt lining refers to the idea of attacking your counterpart in the conflict where you know that it hurts them. So it comes from boxing, where anything below the belt is an illegal move. So this is where we attack personal things that can make someone feel really bad, even whenever it has nothing to do with the conflict itself. But then face enhancing strategies, these are positive. These are often helpful. They enhance the person's self-image and acknowledge autonomy. When we're trying to help the other one feel better about themselves within the conflict, we make few demands. We put things in the form of questions more often. Obviously, there's no belt lining. We keep things above the belt. We don't attack weak points, personal struggles, and the like. And avoid blaming other people or that person for the conflict itself, and express respect for them. The last few slides here are about the difference between verbal aggressiveness and argumentation or argumentativeness. And these are very different concepts. You want to avoid aggressiveness within conflict. As counterintuitive as that sounds, we actually just want to engage in argumentativeness. An argument is clearly opposing sides having a conversation and resolving that argument or resolving the conflict. Aggressiveness will lead more often to negative outcomes. So verbal aggressiveness is destructive toward relationships. It leads to relationship dissatisfaction or even dissolution. At times, it can lead to relationship violence, which we always want to avoid. It can prevent meaningful communication because people don't want to deal with your aggressive style, and so meaningful communication in the future is diminished. And another thing about being aggressive is it can make you seem less credible and thus lead to a lower power of persuasion, because you may be seen as just a hothead or somebody who just loses their temper, or is just super annoying, rude, or aggressive. And those folks oftentimes are seen as less than persuasive. On the other hand, we have argumentativeness. Argumentativeness is positive and constructive. An argument is actually meant to build things and not just to tear them down. Sometimes we have to tear things down first in order to build something new, and sometimes that's the process of conflict. Argumentativeness leads to relationship satisfaction and can help prevent relationship violence, because you're actually talking about everything from issues to feelings. It can enhance communication because people like it whenever they understand the full issue and they're not being attacked, and they can express themselves within that argument. And it can increase credibility and power of persuasion. So essentially, all of these are completely opposite of verbal aggressiveness. We want to move toward argumentativeness to resolve conflict. So some tips to help yourself be argumentative and not aggressive is see things as objectively as possible. Whenever you go after the argument, attack the argument, the issue itself. Don't ever attack the person. Don't make them feel small. Don't make them feel stupid. It's not about that. This is about talking about issues. In fact, do the opposite. Reaffirm the person's competence. Don't make them feel small. Make them feel like they're an intelligent person who has a right to feel the way they do, and so on. Avoid interrupting. Stress equality. Make sure that they have their turn. Express an interest in what they have to say. Even if you disagree with it, make sure that you listen to them. As difficult as it may be at times, you need to remain dispassionate. In other words, you don't want to speak from only a place of emotion. You don't want to get too excited. You don't want to get too angry. But at the same time, let it be known how things make you feel, but use your words to describe how things make you feel, as opposed to just letting the emotion take over. Allow the other person to save face. In other words, you don't want to embarrass your counterpart in any way during the argument. These are just some of the ways that we can help build healthy conflict management strategies.